Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to tell you guys about the books that I've read so far this year that I have loved and I recommend with every part of my soul. That was dramatic. I've read about a little over 30 books this year, and I just put a few of the books that I have here together, and I'm just gonna tell you about them and let you know what books I've been loving so far. And yeah, let's get into it. First up is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is book 2 in the Dreamland Billionaire series. So pretty much the backstory of this series is about 3 brothers, and their grandfather has left them something in the will, but they have to complete something, complete a certain thing that their grandfather had told them in order for them to get their inheritance money. So this one is Declan. Declan is this grumpy, angry man, right? And his grandfather had said that he needed to get married and have a baby in order to receive his inheritance money. Comes in Iris, who is Declan's assistant. So it is workplace romance. Love. And she tries to set him up with all these girls, but he just is so grumpy and so scary that he keeps scaring them all away. And finally, at his engagement party, the girl backs out last minute. Iris steps in and she's like, you know what? I don't like you like that. I've worked with you forever. I will go ahead and marry you so you can get your inheritance money. I absolutely love Iris. She is a plant mom. She's just so relatable. She's funny, she's witty, she is sunshine, obviously. So this is also a grumpy sunshine trope. Oh, it's just so good. The slow burn, like there's just something about it with a man who is so grumpy that refuses to admit that he loves her, and then he finally does, and you just get butterflies in your stomach. You're kicking your feet, you're blushing, you're giggling. I need a Declan in my life. I love this book. So good, obviously 5 stars. Next book I read was Things We Hide from the Light, which is book 2 in the Knock 'em Out series. This one is Nash Morgan's story, and he is the chief of police in the town. If you read the first book, which I do recommend reading because something happens in book 1 that kind of relates to this whole story. And so he's kind of recovering from an accident. So he's very grumpy. He's just like miserable because he lives in this small town and no one's letting him do anything. Then comes in Miss Angelina. She moves in next door, and she's here on an assignment, but she can't tell anyone what the assignment is. And of course, him being the chief of police, she thinks, hey, I'll just pick his brain, kind of find out what's going on in this town and solve whatever crime that she's kind of there for. This book was so good. The banter, the flirting, like everything. She is just a badass. Like she's just this like hard, rugged girl. She's not your typical like rom-com girly. And I think that's just so different, and why I loved it so much was she didn't take any BS from anybody. Nash Morgan, in the first book, he's such a flirt to Naomi, so seeing him and having his own book was just so much fun. And again, just the flirting, the slow burn, the wanting, the needing, like it's just incredible, so good, 5 stars. I cannot wait for the 3rd book. I have a feeling that one's gonna be my favorite in the series. Next up, oh my gosh, this has to be probably it's gonna be in the top 5 range of the whole year, I just know it. But it is the Venom Trilogy by Shanor Williams. So this is a 3-book series. You do need to read them in order because each book does leave off a cliffhanger. First book is Passion and Venom. Second book is Venom and Ecstasy. Third book is Venom and Glory. So this is a very, very, very dark mafia romance. Check all the trigger warnings, all of them, because this is insanely dark. I typically don't really need to read the trigger warnings, but when I went into this completely blind, it took me off guard. So it starts off with a girl, Gia. Her father is one of like a big guy in the mafia, and she is put in an arranged marriage with a man named Antonio. Well, Antonio owes a lot of people some money and has some enemies. So literally they get married. On their way to their honeymoon, the car ride is ambushed and Antonio gone. He's a goner. And they're not really expecting her to be in the car apparently, and they take her. But they have no idea who she is, and they're not telling the big guy upstairs who this girl is, what her name is, whatever. So they just think that there's this girl in a cellar. She's been there for days, for a few days now, and finally he shows up, sees her, and everything clicks. So he knows exactly who this girl is. She is the daughter of the big guy who pretty much helped raise him. So he's really caught off guard to see her. And he holds her captive. He is like forcing her to fall in love with him, and she is not having it. There's betrayal, there's love, there's frustration. So there are things that happen that you literally just want to choke her. Like, what are you doing? It's just a roller coaster of emotions. It is so good. So much stuff happens. Like I said, it is extremely dark. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this book that's a lot. This is insane. The spice, amazing. This whole series is incredible. You're definitely not gonna regret it. Another book that really caught me off guard, I had been told that there was a trope in this one that I, off the bat, knew I was not gonna like. But I decided, you know what, let's give it a read, let's give it a shot. I'm trying to knock out all of these books on my shelf. So I read it and pleasantly surprised that I loved it so much. And of course, the trope that was stated that was in this book was not in this book. Well, was in the book, but wasn't like the main focal point of the book. The book in question is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. This book is so cute and it gives you all of the feels. I'm a dark romance girly through and through, so I picked this book up just as like a little fluffy read in between dark romance books. I just needed something very light and airy, and this is it. This is about Josh and Hazel. They went to college together. Hazel is just this hot mess girl, and Josh has just had it with her. She's just a hot mess, and he just is like, girly, get it together. Like, you're just too much for me. Well, years go by, they graduate college, and Hazel is really convinced that Josh does not like her, but that's just not the case. He's just more put together, and as mentioned, she's just a hot mess. She's all over the place. Her life is crazy. So they reunite, kind of become friends, and then something happens to her apartment where she ends up moving in with him for a certain amount of time. So it is also a forced proximity trope. And they make jokes with each other that they both go on dates that are just kind of like all over the place, like never work out. So they kind of make a pact together that they set each other up on dates and they go on double dates together. And it's just a lot of fun. It's just this fun summer read. It's really funny. Like, I found myself laughing out loud at this. And obviously, like, they just never take anything further with their dates, and you kind of see that they're starting to like really like each other, the jealousy that starts to come through, and it's really good. There isn't a whole lot of spice in this, so if that's something that is important to you in a book, I would probably skip out on this one. But yeah, if you're looking for something really wholesome, really fun for the summertime, definitely recommend this. I had said that there was a trope in this that was stated that for the reason I didn't pick it up, which is the pregnancy trope. But every romance book, there's a pregnancy trope in the epilogue, and that's what happens with this. So the whole storyline is not based on a pregnancy trope. Obviously, something happens in the epilogue, whatever. So loved it. I think I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. So much fun. One of my favorites so far this year. You guys, The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This was so good. It is another Grumpy Sunshine. So Calla Fletcher lives in Canada. She grew up with her mom, and her dad was kind of really not in the picture as much. He just was really he was a pilot, very dedicated to his work. So her mom just left him, took Calla with her, and years go by. She grows up in Canada, just kind of like this prim, proper kind of girl. And years go by, and she finds out that her dad is dying, and her dad his last wish that he really wants is to really like spend time with his daughter before he dies. There is a very grumpy pilot that works with her dad, his right-hand man, the next door neighbor, Jonah. So Jonah kind of sees her and he just knows like off the bat, like she is not made for this small town in Alaska. This is another grumpy sunshine trope. So she spends the 2 weeks with her dad and of course ends up staying longer. She ends up really enjoying it, making friendships with the people in the town and really trying to get the grumpy pilot to like her. What I love so much about a good grumpy sunshine is someone who literally hates everyone in the whole entire universe. He just can't help himself. He just loves her and just wants to be around her. And oh my gosh, the little pranks they pull on each other. It's just such a fun read. I read this so quickly. Insane, so good, 5 stars. Next up is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. This is another small town romance. So Bree runs away from home because something really traumatic ends up happening to her, and she runs away to this small town in Maine, and she moves into this little cottage, like she gets a job at the diner, and then she runs into a man who doesn't talk. She's really caught off guard with why he doesn't talk to her. He was just like, it was a really weird, awkward encounter that kind of took her off guard. And so she talks to the people around the town. What is this guy's deal? Like what's going on? And everyone says that it's Archer and he does not talk, he's mute. No one speaks to him. They think he's weird, he's odd. Everyone just kind of leaves him be and he likes being alone. So that seems to be a challenge for Bree because she's weirdly infatuated and fascinated by Archer, and so she starts to kind of like butt into his life and kind of start something with him. So they start a really fun friendship. He actually communicates through sign language, which Bree knows sign language, so she's really the only person in the whole town who is willing to communicate with him. This is the most sweet, wholesome story ever. Something that's gonna really stick with you for days. I love this book. As of right now, this is my #1 for the year. It is incredible and it's really gonna stick to you for days. Like I just could not stop thinking about it. I cried, I laughed, I smiled. This is just everything it needs to be in a romance book. I loved it, 5 stars, recommend to everybody. It's so good. Next up is a YA romance, which typically isn't my go-to. I usually stick to the new adult genre, but I'm not opposed to YA. And so Lynn Painter, Better Than the Movies, did not disappoint. I have read some Lynn Painter books and I love her writing. So Liz is the female main character. She's a high school student and she is obsessed with rom-coms, movies. Wes is this guy that she just cannot stand. He's just this obnoxious guy that everyone loves. Every girl has a crush on. Like he's the high school it boy. However, this new boy comes into town, which Liz actually grew up with him, and he only ever saw her as like a child, like an annoying child that just always wanted to be around them when he was growing up. So he kind of really can't get that out of his head when he looks at her. So Wes comes in and he's like, hey, like let me help you kind of like seem grown up, seem not like a child anymore, so you can finally get with this guy. And they end up fake dating. So it is a fake dating trope. It is so cute. All of the references of just like fun like rom-com movies that I love to watch are in this book, and it's just so wholesome. I wish I lived a life like this in high school. Loved it, gave it 5 stars. Last but certainly not least, a book I just recently finished, which is Ignite by Melanie Harlow. He is a grumpy firefighter, single dad, and there's an age gap romance. It's insane, it's so good. Dex moves in next door to Winnie. So Winnie's our female main character and she's a romance junkie. She just has way too much expectations for romance, and so she makes a bet with her friend that she is not gonna involve herself into any type of romance for the year or she loses the bet. So comes in Dex, your grumpy single dad firefighter, and she is immediately drawn to him. And they kind of start up like a little like flirtatious, kind of friends with benefits type of thing. And of course, she starts to fall for him. So it is a really fun ride. Dex is an actual grump. I know some books have the grumpy sunshine trope and he's actually not that grumpy. This man is grumpy. He's just not happy, but it's so cute because he's only a simp for his daughters and then obviously for Winnie. And the things that he does that he just like does without thinking, like staying outside on the porch just to see if maybe he'll see her watering her plants. Just the little quirky things that he does that you know, like in the back of your head, like he is so into her and he doesn't even know it. Oh my God. This is definitely gonna give you all the butterflies, give you such high expectations for your next door neighbor. It's so good. This actually got me out of a really bad reading slump. I was in like a 2-month reading slump and this got me out of it. I finished this within a day. It is incredible. It is so good. Melanie Harlow, this was my first book by her and it will not be my last. So that was my book recommendations off the books that I have been loving so far this year. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys got some good inspiration. If you have any specific video recommendations that you would like me to film, definitely let me know. Of course, this is my first video, so I'm really open to any type of advice or just like recommendations. Just let me know what you guys want and I will definitely film that. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and I hope you have the best day ever. Love you guys.